Going to Rangers at that level, expectations obviously pretty much win every game with ease. Did you feel that pressure when you've got 50,000 and you're coming up against, sides that are not in Rangers category, etc.? Any draw you get or any defeat, it must be like a lot of pressure on you at that time.
No, the expectations were huge, and rightly so. We were full time training every day, and you're playing against teams that, no disrespect to them, but they're part-time teams, but you have to give them the respect and the credit that they're due. A lot of the part-time teams in Scotland are made up of guys that have played full-time football and have played at a higher level and have dropped down for whatever reason, whether that be, they're looking to start working before the end of their careers. In Scotland, you're not on the same wage levels as you are in the Championship in England and the Premiership in England. So, you have to start planning for life outside of football. And I think a lot of players that were playing in the lower leagues at the other clubs were good players that had maybe just stopped training the full time and had taken on work outside of football as well to try and think about life after football. So, you give them credit. There was some good sides and good players, and they're well organised. They understand the game. And I think a lot of them, probably the fitness levels probably got us over the line a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Or if you score early in them types of games, can make your day easier. But with the longer the game goes, without scoring and the longer that the opposition are in the game, especially at Ibrox when there's 50,000 plus expectant people that are wanting you to go and score 5, 6, 7, 8 goals every week, and expecting that, it can be difficult. And then teams can use that atmosphere in the ground to their advantage as well. So we had to deal with that, and it was something I enjoyed trying to deal with, and a pressure I enjoyed. I can't obviously speak for every other player, but it was something that I really enjoyed trying to deal with and trying to manage. And I think it probably helped that I was a little bit older, and I'd kind of been around the block a bit, that I understood football a lot more, and I tried to shut off everything outside of my own little bubble.
And given the situation that Rangers were in, obviously when Ali McCoist took over, he did a very good job in my opinion. Was it perhaps disappointing in the way he left? Obviously, it's a lot of unknown in the circumstances he did leave, but was it sad that you didn't get to see him carry on and eventually get Rangers back to the top flight, and the way it turned out? Was it disappointing? So obviously, as you said, you got
on well with him. Of course it was. As I said, he was one of the main factors why I wanted to go there, to go and play under himself and his staff. And I think, it would have been fantastic for him to be the one to bring them back. But that's football, isn't it? You when you're at a club like that, you're judged on results. Most football clubs, if the results don't go your way, that's what happens. And I felt bad for Ali that as the players, we didn't deliver for him on that. And that's, again, when you talk about having regrets at certain football clubs, that's obviously one at Rangers, that we didn't do that, that season. But you've got to give a lot of credit to Hearts that year. They played some fantastic football, and they got the job done in most of their games. And you also had Hibs in the league as well, who were another good top side. So it was a competitive league, and unfortunately we fell short. But you look back now and you look where they are now. It's great to see them, flying high in the league, and hopefully they can get over the line in the next couple of weeks.
I'd imagine so. And in your second season, you did get the chance to experience an Old Firm derby, didn't you, in the semi-final at Hampden Park? What was that like?
Torture.
Was it?
No, it was obviously, I was on the bench that day, and I came on at half-time at 2-0, and the way the game was going, it wasn't going to really change. We probably needed to obviously get the next goal, and I think Celtic at that stage were in cruise control, and the fans were obviously buoyant as well. So it was a difficult one to come into, but it was nice to experience it. It was nice to experience the build up to an Old Firm, and but obviously, as I said, the levels of the sides at that time were miles apart.
Yeah.
And you look now obviously at the levels, and I think it's a little bit more closer. Obviously Celtic are having a tough time just now, but I think at that time, the players they had at their disposal were, Van Dijk played. They had one or two others that day that were miles ahead as well. So no, it was a good experience, and it was great to be involved in. Obviously the result and the performance were disappointing, but nice to say you've been involved in one, I suppose.
And what was the build-up like in Glasgow in the lead up to that game? Obviously, it was the first old firm game for quite a while, given that they used to play each other 4 or 5 times a season. So with it being the first one for a while, I bet fans were excited from both sides to find that fixture back.
Yeah, luckily for me, I didn't live in Glasgow at the time, and I stayed over where I was near Dundee, and I used to travel across every day, so I never really lived inside that bubble. When I came back from training, you could kind of switch off from it. I know obviously a couple of the other boys that lived in Glasgow said it was quite intense. Even going doing the shopping with your wife or your missus or your kids, you could be subject to abuse from both sides. So thankfully for me, I didn't really experience that, because of probably where I lived geographically was quite far away.
It might have been different, I suppose, if you'd won that semi-final. It was Dundee United in the final, wouldn't it? So that'd been an interesting one for you if you'd got through that.
It would have been. We actually played Dundee United in the semi-final the following year, which was at Ibrox. It was a strange one because we played at Ibrox. It was supposed to be a neutral venue, and we played at Ibrox. And that was an interesting one, obviously the build up to that, because obviously I lived over that way. But yeah, that was a disappointing result for myself personally. No, it was nice for obviously Dundee United and a club that are close to my heart, so it was nice for them to go on, and I was disappointed they didn't then go on and win it. Once I got over the disappointment of getting beat by them, I was gutted for them that they never went on and got another trophy. St Johnstone beat them that year in the final.
Then you left Rangers. Last move of your career ended up being Raith Rovers. In the back of your mind, I mean, you're still only, like you said, 32. Did you think you'd be playing on longer than you did end up doing? Obviously, the coaching call sort of maybe came earlier than you thought. What were your thoughts going to Raith Rovers? Did you see yourself playing a few more years?
Yeah, well, I had planned to play for a few more years. As I mentioned previously, I had planned to try and go abroad after Rangers for a little while and a little spell. And as I said, South Africa never really came about, and a couple of things in America never really happened. So I met with Ray McKinnon, the Raith Rovers manager, just to chat and see what he was trying to do and what he was thinking. And he was obviously trying to get me in, and he spoke about the opportunity to get games under your belt, and then when January comes about, I'd signed a contract till the January. When January comes about, there's a lot more markets opened again.
Yeah.
A lot more teams starting up again. So so it seemed like a good fit for me at the time to go and play and to get games and then see what happened in January. And as I said, I think it was October time, I got a call off Hearts about going in as the under-20s coach. So yeah, I weighed it up and I spoke to my wife, and the opportunity to go abroad would have been fantastic, but the opportunity to go in at a club like Hearts, who are probably one of the top 3, top 4 teams in Scotland, to go in as a full-time coach in a great, fantastic environment was probably too good an opportunity to turn down at that time. These opportunities, I don't think they come about very often, especially in Scotland. There's only so many part-time teams full-time teams, which then leads to so many full-time jobs. So I had planned to go into the coaching side when I'd finished playing, if opportunities presented themselves. And as I said, this one came up at a time that I felt like the right time, and obviously I'm pleased that I took the opportunity when I did, and went into a brilliant club like Hearts to try and start learning the other side of the game.
And then who did the call come from then? Was it someone you'd played with before or been managed before who actually got in touch with you to bring you over to Hearts?
So It was Craig Levine was my manager at Dundee United, and he gave me a call just to see what my thoughts were, what my plans were, and what I was looking to do. And the only kind of downside was the timing, in terms of it was October, I think it was middle October when he rang me, and they were looking to try and get someone in straight away. I didn't want to let rates down because transfer windows had shut. They wouldn't have been able to bring in another striker. So I had a meeting with Craig, Robbie Nielsen, who was a former teammate, and Anne Budge, who I didn't really know and just met her for the first time. I had a meeting with them three about the role, and thankfully they were quite happy for me to finish my contract at rate before coming in January.
And then your time at Hearts, obviously initially focused on the 20 team, but you've had a couple of chances when you've had interim manager. What was that like? Something you were happy to get involved with? Yeah,
great. It really was. It was. I loved working with the younger ones at Hearts, the under-20s, and as I said, they were really receptive and to take it on information, and it was great. It was a great learning curve for me as a coach, in terms of, you would plan your sessions and then you would lose because of the levels that you were at and where I was working with the 20s. If the first team needed 2 or 3 bodies, you would lose them quite late. So you had to adapt, and I always felt that going in at that level, was a great. It was great for my development as a coach, and I felt like it was accelerated learning in terms of like having to adapt your sessions and having to change. And things that don't always probably go the way you want them to go in your session. So you have to quickly adapt without the players knowing that you're flapping underneath and that you're feeling the pressure of having to change something. So so that was good, and obviously, like you said, the opportunities to take the team when Robbie left to go to MK Dons, that was pretty much just copy and paste, just do what Robbie was doing, because he left in a really positive way. The team was flying high, they were doing really well. I think he left a day or two before the game, so I think he had basically had the team more or less prepped. So it was case just myself and Andy Kirk just taking the reins for that game and just trying to help them get a win. And Jamie Walker obviously missed the penalty in the last few minutes to win the game 3-2. So that's something we never forgave him for. But the other one, obviously, when Ian Catrell left to go, after the Dunfermline defeat in the cup, he lost his job, and that one was a bit different, because obviously the atmosphere when a manager gets sacked rather than moves on in a positive way it's a different type of environment, and it was something that you're trying to come in. I hadn't really been around the first team squad, so I probably had more opportunities to quickly look at the squad and see the ones that I wanted to use and the ones that I didn't want to use, and again, a great experience. I think it was maybe four games we had taking the team, but again, a unique situation that all our games were away from home, because the stand at Tynecastle was still getting fixed and getting done, and so yeah, it was a strange one that we had no home fixtures, and it would have been nice to have a game at Tynecastle in front of the home fans, because it's a fantastic venue and fantastic crowd and really, really good fans that back the club there, and it would have been nice. But the 4 away games we had were really tough games. I think we started with Celtic away, then went to Kilmarnock away, Rangers away, and then Motherwell away, and in previous seasons, I think they were the 4 toughest fixtures the Hearts have had in so they couldn't have got much tougher. But look, it was a great experience, and it kind of gave me that desire and that bug to try and get to that level again and try and get there again at some stage in the future.
Coming in after Ian Cathro left, did you find it a challenge to pick up the atmosphere in the dressing room? Which obviously it would have been fairly low given the run of form the team had been on. Did you find that as your main goal, really, just try and boost the mood and try and get them back up to scratch?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing we tried to do was try and get the players in a positive frame of mind. Obviously, when you're going to Celtic on the first game of the season and the manager's just been sacked, it's it's going to be quite difficult. But the players were quite responsive to what we tried to do. We tried to just increase the tempo of training and to get them working hard for each other in training, and then obviously trying to get messages across on how we wanted the team to play going into the games. And I think you got to give the credit to the players. They were very professional. It's, as I said, it's not a nice environment to be in when a manager loses his job. It's quite tough in terms of in them situations. And I think for the players, they have to try and be professional, and they tried to get their mind on what was happening and where we were trying to go.
And then rolling forward a few years, when Daniel Stendhal came in, was it just a case of he wants to bring in his own staff? Was there a chance for you to stay on, or was it just a bit of a clear out?
Not really, no. I think he kind of made it clear that, well, without probably saying it, that he wanted to bring his own staff in. I think originally, they had said he would come in on his own and work with maybe Austin or Liam or myself. But I think when he came in, I think I've been in the game a long time, and you can kind of see the situations developing, and I totally understand how football works, and certain managers want to work with their own people, and that's fine. And I think that's rightly so. If new managers come in, I think they should be given the opportunities to work with their own people. So it was disappointing to leave Hearts, but I think it was probably a good time to go, and obviously it turned out not to be a good time. Obviously 2 months later with COVID kicking in, but it was a good experience for me, and probably I learned a lot from that situation when Daniel came in, and how I would probably approach certain things if I went into a club myself.
And then obviously the opportunity came up with Jonatan. Am I right in thinking, did you coaching badges at some stage with him? So you already had a friendship. Yeah. And did he just give you a shout and say, "Come over, do you fancy this chance?"
Yeah, so many years ago, we done our B license together. I don't even know if he remembers, but I remember him being on the course together. We probably didn't really know each other that well then. I think we maybe had a couple of conversations. He was obviously then, he'd been a Motherwell at the time, I think, and in charge of the 20s. So we maybe had a couple of times we came across each other, and then we went on the pro license together. We started it 2 years ago. So it was mainly there that we probably built that relationship, and we were partnered together a lot for a lot of the kind of assignments, and especially when we went to Bologna, we went to Italy for a week to the European Championships, under 21 Championships, and that kind of week there was 4 groups throughout the week that you were put into, and each group I was with Jonatan, and so we kind of worked well together, and we developed that relationship, and we stayed in contact. He was obviously out of work, and then when I left work in January, we would go and watch games together and stuff like that, and we'd be talking about football when the game's going on. So we kind of have similar views on the game, a little bit different, but quite similar. So he obviously got that job. He was close to getting another job that when I was still at Hearts, he spoke to me about potentially going in as his assistant if he got the job. But obviously that never came to fruition. So he got this job, and the assistant manager that was working with him last year had decided that he wanted to move on to another club. So the role became available, and he rang me up and just said, would you be interested in coming over and being his assistant and taking care of the under-23 side as well? So I thought it'd be a fantastic opportunity to come and coach abroad. As I spoke about earlier, I would have loved to do it as a player. That never came about. So, coming to do it as a coach is the next best thing.
And did you have any? Did you think twice about it? Like, did you know much about the country, or was it something you were just happy to jump into?
No, well, I think it was kind of on the cards for a while. He kind of knew that his assistant was leaving. I think maybe 3 or 4 months beforehand. So it was conversations that we were having about it. So I started to take, watching games and watching opposition and stuff like that to see what it was like and to see the levels. Obviously, when you're watching games on a screen or you're watching clips, it's different than when you're actually at a game and you're involved in it. But just to give myself a general understanding of it. So I kind of knew it was coming about. I'd had conversations with my wife, obviously, about the logistics of it, because obviously we've 2 girls that we didn't all want to just uproot and move.
What were your wife's thoughts? What did she have some reservations, or just happy for you to go for it?
Possibly, but I think she knew that it was always going to be a possibility that my next role, wherever it may be, would have meant me moving away from the family home. I think if I'd got a job in Scotland, potentially you could have travelled from where I was based because it was quite central. But if I had been maybe down in England or back in Ireland or wherever, then you're obviously maybe moving. Obviously, moving to a different country is a little bit more difficult, probably for the family. But it's something that we're coping with and we're managing with. I think with the current restrictions and the current situation worldwide, it's obviously made it a little bit more probably tough on everybody. It would have been nice that if you could just jump on a flight and go home. I actually had a flight booked for next week to go home after the game, but it's been cancelled, so I'm not able to go back. And now with the restrictions that are being put in place in Scotland, I can't afford to go back. I can't afford to pay $2,000 to stay in a hotel for 10 days.
Yeah.
So it's tough and it's disappointing. They're going to potentially come over in a couple of months. Ideally she could come over now, but she works herself, so she can't get the time off to come across. It would have probably been an ideal time with the kids homeschooling, because they could have just done that from anywhere. But we'll manage, and I'm sure we'll get through. And hopefully, when the world goes back to normal, we can enjoy the experience probably the way we would have liked to enjoy it. With them coming over, and me going back home to see them and probably seeing each other a little bit more. Yeah,
definitely a great opportunity. I don't think many other jobs provide a chance like that, do they? And who knows where it may lead in the future. Mm-hmm. Your first impressions then of football in the country, in Finland, like, obviously you did a bit of research beforehand, but how have your first few months been?
No, I think it's been really good. I obviously started in January, but I came over in November. I came over in November for like a winter training when their season finished. We had maybe 5 weeks of training. So I got a good glimpse of the players that were here, and I was pleasantly surprised. I think there's a good level of players. There's some really good, talented young players as well. I don't think it's far off, maybe some of the teams in Scotland. Maybe not at the level of, like, Celtic, Rangers, Aberdeen. But I think there are some good players at the club we're at. I think the top clubs in Finland would be a good match for the teams outside of the old firm.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been pleasantly surprised, and I think the players have been excellent in terms of, they want to improve, they want to get better, and I think that helps you as a coach when you have players that are receptive and they want to take on information. They ask you questions. They want to do extra stuff in training. So it's great. It's been really enjoyable. I think, as I said, the only negative is the personal side away from the football.
And so, what are the aims for this season then? Am I right in thinking you've had like a couple of cup games at this stage, and the proper season starts in a few months' time?
Yeah. So the cup has started 2 weeks ago. We lost the first game 1-0 to AIF, and then we won 2-0 to Moose at home. So we're due to play on Saturday against PK. So if we win that, I think we have a good chance of going through. So it's kind of in our own hands at the minute. And then we have, I think, if you progress, you have another, obviously, going to the knockout stage against a top league team. And then the league starts then in middle of April. So So yeah, I think the main goal this year is obviously to try and get promoted back to the top league. They got relegated last year in the relegation playoff against KTP, so it was tough. The league was kind of cut short when they were in good form, and I think they were due to have 5 more league games. I think at the stage they were a point behind second bottom, so third bottom, because they finished second bottom. So it was a difficult one to take for them to go down, but we obviously need to regroup and try and bounce back and try and go back up. And I think a lot of the clubs and a lot of teams in the league are quite similar. They'll have similar budgets to ourselves, so it's not going to be easy. But I think we have to be confident that we can try and push on and try and get enough wins under our belt that are going to see us back up to the top league.
Fingers crossed. Yeah. Have you had any fans back in the last few games? Was it completely empty over there as well?
No, the games at the moment are indoor because of the weather.
Okay.
So the cup games start off. You play them indoors, and at the moment the indoor venues are restricted. So it's just being the kind of TV crews and the players and the coaching staffs.
And overall, what are your thoughts on Finland as a country? How's the lifestyle there, even though it's been in a mad time? What are your initial thoughts? What's it like as a place?
No, I've really liked it. I think the people are great, and they're really friendly and really helpful. I think, as I said, the people around the club and the players and the staff have been fantastic with myself. And I think the fact that the majority of them speak English is great for me. I'm obviously trying to pick up a couple of words of Finnish, so you can try and communicate in Finnish for the ones that are probably aren't great at English. And I don't think
how's that going?
My accent. It's been okay. I can kind of understand it more than I can speak it. Like when people are speaking around, I can kind of pick up what they're talking about by 1 or 2 words that they maybe say. So that's obviously the challenges that come with being in a foreign country as well. The difficulties of communication. But as I said, majority of the Finnish people, they're very, very fluent in English. So, and as I said, I'm doing my best to try and pick up a couple of words. After all, I'm in their country, so it's important that I try and make an effort to try and speak a little bit of their lingo as well.
And personal goals for yourself? Do you want to go into management as the first team manager yourself in the future? Do you see your career going that way?
I think eventually down the line, I think, yes, I would love an opportunity to manage. And I think that was one of the positives about the role as well. That, obviously adds to your workload, but it was to be the kind of head coach of the under-23 team who compete in the Division 3. So, we're playing in a competitive division as well, and trying to get promoted to the second division. So that in itself gives you, the freedom to work with that team, obviously under the umbrella of the first team, and it's obviously classed as the under-23s, but first team players that need games can also play in it, which is great. It gives, I suppose, it's like a reserve side, but being played like a Colts team being played in a competitive league. So that's given me the opportunity to try and manage them. And Jonatan has been fantastic with that. He's kind of just given me the reins just to manage them as I see fit. And it's been something I've really enjoyed. Obviously, as I said, it's the workload obviously is massive. But it gives me something else to do, because obviously I can't see my family, so it's keeps my mind off that.
Brilliant. Well, that's great. I think that covers it all. Good luck, and keep in touch once the season gets going, and we'll track your progress on the website. Do you reckon Jonatan might be up for a bit of a chat and interview about his time in Scotland and England over the next few weeks as well?
Possibly. I'll mention it to him and see what he says. Possibly.
Yeah, if you could put us in touch, that'd be great.
No problem.
Yeah, thanks a lot for your time, John. All the best.
No problem.
Hopefully you're able to get home at some point as well.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thanks.